Hi friends, welcome to 5 Mantra Career Point. So my name is Sudheer and today we are going to discuss about science and technology. So when talking about the case of your science and technology, the importance of science and technology in the upcoming competitive examinations. So whether you're talking about the case of your Group 1 examination or else whether you're talking about the case of your Group 2 examination or SI and constables. So in each and every particular examination, we have one particular topic, that is general science and science and technology. So as a part of the preparation for the upcoming examinations, so today we are going to start with the case of your science and technology. So what is the role of science and technology in the competitive examinations? So when talking about the case of your Group 2 examination, or else when talking about the case of your SI examinations, so we are expecting somewhere between 18 to 20 questions from general science, at the same time science and technology. So depending upon the level of the examination, so whether you're talking about the case of your SI examinations, or as the case of your Group 2, or as the case of your Group 1 examination, the number of questions in science and technology, the standard of questions in science and technology, it just keeps on varying. So in case of your SI constables, that may be around 6 to 7 questions. The moment you go to Group 2 or Group 1 examination, it may vary somewhere between 10 to 12 questions from science and technology part. Right? So keeping in with the examinations, what are the topics that we need to focus on, right, so that we are able to score the maximum number of marks in these particular examinations, right? So the topics that we need to discuss in case of your science and technology, these are the topics there. The very first topic, that is the development of science and technology in India. At the same time, you need to talk about the case of your nuclear energy. You need to talk about the case of your defense. At the same time, space technology, computers and information technology. At the same time, energy resources, and then biotechnology. So these are the topics that we need to focus, we need to prepare whenever you're preparing for Group 1, Group 2, or as the case of your SI examinations. So apart from that, right, we need to even prepare, or else we need to even study the case of your nanotechnology. So we'll discuss about nanotechnology later. Why I haven't included nanotechnology here, there is a reason behind it, right? So when talking about each and every particular topic in detail, the very first one, you're talking about the case of your development of S&T in India. So in this particular topic, what are the things that we need to focus on? So when talking about the case of your development of science and technology in India, we'll start with how the development of science and technology in India has started, when it has started. Who were the persons who contributed for the development of S&T in India? So whether you're talking about the case of your Bhaskaracharya, whether you're talking about the case of your Aryabhatta, whether you're talking about the case of your Charak, or else the case of your any particular ancient research scholars, ancient the scientists. So after discussing about the case of the ancient scientists or ancient research scholars, then we move on to the case of your medieval India. So during the medieval period, who were the persons who contributed for the development of S&T in India? After that one, you come to the case of your modern India. So during the modern India, so during that particular era, the eminent persons, the eminent research scholars, the eminent scientists who contributed for the development of S&T in India. So whether we are talking about the case of your Satyendranath Bose, whether you're talking about the case of Hargobind Khurana, or else whether you're talking about the case of your the different scientists, right? So whether you're talking about the case of your C.V. Raman, or as the case of your Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. So the different scientists who has contributed for the development of S&T in India. So in which particular area, in which particular field of science, and its related subjects, they have contributed. What is their contribution? That is what we discuss here. So after the different research scholars, so after the eminent persons, then we move on to the case of your 5-year plans in India. The moment you're talking about the case of your 5-year plans. So here we'll talk about the case of the different 5-year plans, and in each and every particular 5-year plan, right, the focus was given, the focus was laid on which particular area of S&T, the focus on which particular field or which particular area of science and technology. So in case of your 5-year plans, we'll not discuss these particular 5-year plans from the economical perspective, or else from the case of the different perspectives, whether you're talking about the case of development related to the case of agriculture sector, development related to the case of industrial sector, we'll not discuss about that particular thing. Here the discussion is completely related to, the discussion is completely focused with relation to the case of your science and technology development here. How the 5-year plans, how the different 5-year plans, whether it's a first 5-year plan, whether it is a second 5-year plan, or as the case of your 7th, 8th or the other 5-year plans, how they contributed for the development of S&T in India. Then after that one, we'll discuss about the case of your National Science Congress meetings. Right? Now these particular National Science Congress meetings are held every year. You're talking about the case of a National Science Congress meetings, which was started in the year 1914. So right from 1914 till 2021, these particular Science Congress meetings are held every year. So why these particular Science Congress meetings are held? Where are they held? So what is the reason for conducting these particular National Science Congress meetings every year at different places, at different universities throughout the nation? We'll discuss that. So each and every particular Science Congress meeting has got a focal theme. So we'll be focusing on that particular focal themes. What is the agenda of that particular Science Congress meeting that particular year? At the same time, in this particular topic, we'll be discussing on the case of your national science policies. The different national science policies, right, that were implemented, that were formulated. So right from 1958 science policy till 2013 policy, or else the case of your upcoming 2021 or else 2022 policy. The draft for this particular policy has been framed. The draft for 2021 policy has been framed, and maybe soon, maybe by the end of this particular year, or maybe in the early 2022, the new policy may be implemented. So the 58 policy, or as the case of your 83 policy, or as the case of your 2003 policy or 2013 policy, the focus was laid on which particular sectors. Why a particular science policy has been designed, why a particular science policy has been formulated, why it is being implemented. That is what we'll discuss here. At the same time, the most important thing in case of your science policies is the case of your intellectual property rights. Intellectual property rights. So what do you mean by these particular intellectual property rights? The moment you're talking about the case of your IPR, so when IPR has been implemented in India, so from when we have started implementing intellectual property rights? Why do we need to have intellectual property rights in India? Do we really require them? If at all we require intellectual property rights, in which particular area do we require them? So you're talking about the case of your copyrights. You're talking about the case of your patents. You're talking about the case of your trademarks, trade secrets. At the same time, the most important thing, that is, you're talking about the case of your geographical indications. That is what we call them as GI tags. So these particular geographical indications are valid for how many years? And for which particular products? And for which particular items? These particular geographical indications have been allotted in the recent years. So whether you're talking about the case of your Telia Rumal from Telangana, or else the case of your Chakhao rice from Manipur, or else you're talking about the case of your terracotta toys from Uttar Pradesh. So on what basis these particular geographical indications will be allotted, and in the recent years to which particular item these have been allotted. So we need to discuss each and every particular geographical indications from the past 1 year or so, for which items the GI tags have been allotted. And at the same time, so after the case of your intellectual property rights, so we need to focus here in this particular case, we need to focus on the different schemes that have been launched by the Department of Science and Technology. The moment you're talking about the case of your different departments, for the development of science and technology in India, we have got 6 particular departments here. That is the Department of Science and Technology, the Department of Space, Department of Ocean Development, Department of Biotechnology, Department of Scientific and Industrial Research, Department of Space. All these particular departments, they are working for the development of S&T in India, including the Department of Nuclear Energy, Atomic Energy, the Department of Atomic Energy. 6 departments which are working all together. And out of all these particular things, the Department of Science and Technology has introduced some schemes to stop brain drain process. So you talk about one particular thing called as your brain drain. The intellectuals moving away from the country. So why the intellectuals are moving away? Why they are going to abroad? Why they are going abroad? Why they are settling abroad? What is the reason why we need to pull them back? So what are the schemes that we have launched for attracting those particular intellectuals who are moving away? So here we'll be talking about the case of your different schemes that are launched by the Department of Science and Technology to attract the intellectuals back to the nation. So whether you're talking about the case of your Inspire program, whether you're talking about the case of your Imprint program, whether you're talking about the case of your Kiran, or else the case of your Ramalinga Swami fellowship programs, or else the case of your Satyam, the different programs that have been started by the Department of Science and Technology. At the same time, very recently, it has also even started some programs which is especially meant for the case of your school children. You talk about the case of adult tinkering labs. What is ATL? What is AIM? Adult Innovation Mission. So we'll be discussing about all these particular things in this particular topic, that is the development of S&T in India. So after the first topic, then the next topic, that is the case of your nuclear energy. So in case of your science and technology, we'll be discussing about one more topic, that is nuclear energy. The moment you're talking about the case of your nuclear energy, we'll be discussing about the case of your nuclear fission. What is fission? What is fusion? What are nuclear reactors? The important components of nuclear reactors. The different types of isotopes that we are using. Maybe in the field of medicine, maybe in the field of agriculture, or else in the case of your different sectors. What is the use of these particular isotopes? At the same time, in case of your nuclear energy, we'll be discussing about the case of your atomic power plants in India. So how many atomic power plants in India we are having as of now? At the same time, what is the net amount of energy that is being produced by these particular atomic power plants, as well as the case of the nuclear reactors which are operational in these particular atomic power plants? What is the number of atomic power plants? What is the number of nuclear reactors? And where are these particular atomic power plants located in India? In which state? In which particular place they are located? At the same time, we'll be discussing about the case of the research reactors that are operational in BARC. So whether you're talking about the case of your Apsara reactor, whether you're talking about the case of your Cyrus or Zarlina, or as the case of your Kamini or Dhruva, the different types of your reactors that are operational in BARC. At the same time, the most important one in case of your nuclear energy is the three-stage program, the three-stage nuclear development program that has been launched by, that was started by Homi Jahangir Baba, who is also known as the father of Indian atomic energy, father of Indian nuclear energy. So, you're talking about the case of your pressurized heavy water reactors. You're talking about the case of your fast breeder reactors. So you're talking about the case of your advanced heavy water reactors. What is the difference between them? Why this particular three-stage nuclear power program has been designed by Homi Jahangir Baba in late in 1950s? What is the reason behind it? At the same time, so here in this particular case, we'll be discussing even about the case of your heavy water plants that are started in India. What is meant by heavy water? Where do we use this particular heavy water? Right? What is meant by heavy water? What's the difference between heavy water and ordinary water? Right? At the same time, in case of your nuclear energy, so here we'll be discussing about the case of your different types of organizations that are working for the establishment of peace across the globe. So whether you're talking about the case of your International Atomic Energy Agency, or else whether you're talking about the case of your NSG, Nuclear Supplier Group, when IAEA was started, what is NPT, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, what is NSG, why NSG has been created. At the same time, you need to talk about the case of your CTBT, what is Australian Group, what is Wassenaar Agreement. So all these particular things we will be discussing in case of your nuclear energy. Then moving on to the next one. In case of your nuclear energy, the next topic will be defense. So the moment you're talking about the case of your defense, the questions from this particular topic, there is a possibility that the questions from this particular topic can be asked even in terms of your match the following also. So the moment you're talking about the match the following questions, it is not one question, but it is one question in which you have got 4 different questions at one particular point of time. So in case of your defense, right, we'll be discussing about the case of your different types of missiles that have been developed by DRDO, Defense Research Development Organization. So whether you are talking about the case of your short-range ballistic missiles, whether you're talking about the case of your intermediate range ballistic missiles, whether you're talking about the case of your intercontinental ballistic missiles, the different types of missiles that have been developed as a part of IGMDP program, Integrated Guided Missile Development Program. So when this particular IGMDP program was started, and what are the different types of missiles that have been developed as a part of IGMDP program? So whether you're talking about the case of your Agni missiles, whether you're talking about the case of your Prithvi, or as the case of your the different Nag, Trishul, Astra, the different types of missiles. At the same time, recently DRDO has tested the missiles like Agni P. It has even tested BrahMos 2. So what is the difference between Agni P and BrahMos 2? How can we launch, or from where can we launch Agni Prime? From where can we launch BrahMos 2? What is the difference between BrahMos 1 and BrahMos 2? Right? So, for the development of BrahMos, India is working along with which country? BrahMos is named after 2 different rivers. What are those 2 rivers? At the same time, you're talking about the case of your Rafale fighter planes. You need to talk about the case of the fighter planes that have been designed, the fighter planes that have been developed by Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. So what are the different radars that have been developed by DRDO? At the same time, the most important one, as of now we say, the aircraft carriers, the warship carriers, the different types of submarines that we are building as of now. You talk about the case of your Project 72, P-72. What is this particular project P-72? At the same time, here in case of your defense, we'll be talking about the case of the latest types of the latest equipments that have been designed by DRDO. You're talking about the case of your unmanned aerial vehicles. What is meant by an unmanned aerial vehicle? Right? So the different weapons that are working based on the radar systems, the lasers, all these things we'll be discussing in case of your defense. Then the next one, that is the case of your space technology. So in case of your space technology, right, the moment you're talking about the case of your space technology will start with the case of your ISRO and the organization, the different organizations which are working for ISRO. So whether you're talking about the case of your Vikram Sarabhai Space Center, whether you're talking about the case of your Satish Dhawan Space Center, or else whether you're talking about the case of your Sriharikota High Altitude Ranging, which is also known as Satish Dhawan Space Center. At the same time, the different organizations like Antrix Corporation, or as the case of a New Space India Limited. What is New Space India Limited? What is Antrix Corporation? What is the role of these two in the development of space technology in India? Right? At the same time, here we'll be talking about the case of your different orbits. So you're talking about the case of your LEO orbit, or as the case of your MEO orbit. What is the difference between LEO and MEO? What is the difference between MEO and GEO? Or else what is GTO orbit? The different types of orbits. So what are the satellites that are placed in these particular orbits? The moment you are placing a particular satellite in LEO orbit, we can use that particular satellite for which particular purpose? The moment you are placing a particular satellite in GEO orbit, we can use that one for which particular purpose? Or as the navigation satellites are placed in which particular orbit? At the same time, so here we talk about the case of your Navik. So what is the difference between Navik and GPS? Now we know that GPS is one particular navigation system which is being designed, developed by NASA. So which one is more accurate? Whether GPS is accurate? Whether Navik is accurate? If so, why? If at all you are saying GPS is accurate, what is the reason? If at all you are saying Navik is more accurate, what is the reason behind it? At the same time, you're talking about the case of your Chandrayaan 2. You're talking about the case of your Gaganyaan mission. So for Gaganyaan mission, what are the different experiments that ISRO has conducted? At the same time, what is the reason for the failure of Chandrayaan 2? We say that Chandrayaan 2 is 98% success. It is not 100% failure. 98% it is success. At the same time, you're talking about the case of your mission Aditya, mission Venus. Right? At the same time, the different projects or programs that have been started by ISRO to attract the students, to attract the youth. Whether you're talking about the case of your Yuvika program, or else you're talking about the case of your Unnati program. The programs that have been designed to attract the students. At the same time, what are the different types of satellites that have been launched recently? So whether you're talking about the case of your EOS-03, which was a failure, or else you're talking about the case of Amazonia 1, the satellite, Amazonia 1 satellite, or else EOS-03 satellites. So these particular satellites were launched with the help of different launch vehicles. For placing satellites in orbits, we use different types of your launch vehicles. Whether you're talking about the case of your SLV, whether you're talking about the case of your ASLV, or as the case of your PSLV, or as the case of your GSLV. So what is the difference between them? At the same time, in case of your PSLV, what are the different variants that we have in PSLV? What are the different variants that we have in GSLV? At the same time, the upcoming one, SSLV, or else reusable launch vehicle, RLV. So what are all these particular things? This is what we are going to discuss in case of your space technology. Then, moving on to the next one, that is the case of your computers and IT. The moment you're talking about the case of your computers. So here in case of your computers, we'll be discussing the basic fundamental things in case of your computers. What is RAM? What is ROM? what is IP address, what is DNS server, the acronyms of all these particular things. You talk about the case of a HTTP, HTML, IP, or as DNS, or as you're talking about the case of a URL. At the same time, the different acronyms or the different short forms that we are using in day-to-day life. Now, for example, you're talking about the case of your NEFT transfer, IMPS transfer. So these are the two different terms that we are using while transferring money by mobile banking. You're talking about NEFT or IMPS or as a case of RTGS. What is the full form of these particular things? At the same time, what is meant by BEAM? Right? What is meant by UPI address? That is the basics in case of your computers. At the same time, the supercomputers that we are having as of now, the supercomputers across the globe, the supercomputers which are in India, what is the speed of those particular supercomputers? Right? So what is the unit that we are using for measuring the speed of a particular supercomputer? That will be discussing in case of your computers and information technology. At the same time, in case of your IT or information technology, we'll be discussing about the case of your different mobile applications that the state governments have launched, the central government has launched. Whether you're talking about the case of your Disha app, whether you're talking about the case of your Umang app, or else you're talking about the case of your T-app folio, the different types of mobile applications that the central and the state governments have launched. At the same time, the different programs that have been launched by the central government. Whether you're talking about the case of your Digital India, whether you're talking about the case of your e-governance. So in case of your e-governance, you talk about various things. You talk about the case of your e-Sampark, e-Kranti, e-Office, MCA 21. What is the meaning of each and every particular thing? That is what we are going to discuss in case of your computers and IT. Then, moving on to the next one, that is the case of your energy resources. So in case of your energy resources, we'll be talking about the case of your conventional energy resources. At the same time, non-conventional energy resources. What is the difference between conventional and non-conventional energy resources? So what are conventional energy resources? Why we are calling them as conventional energy resources? Why we are calling them as non-renewable energy resources? What is the difference between grey hydrogen? What is the difference between blue hydrogen, grey and blue hydrogen? At the same time, you're talking about green hydrogen. So as on date, we are focusing a lot on green hydrogen. So what is meant by green hydrogen? How can we produce green hydrogen? What is the target that is being set by the Honorable Prime Minister, right, for 2030? So when he has delivered his speech on 15th of August 2021 from Red Fort, he has set a target. So by 2030, India must be in a prominent position in the production of green hydrogen. But what is meant by green hydrogen? Right, you're talking about the case of your renewable energy. What is the position of India in the generation of this particular renewable energy? How much renewable energy we are producing every year? That is what we discuss in case of your energy resources. At the same time, the various challenges that we need to face here. Whether you're talking about the case of your pollution levels, whether you're talking about the case of your sulfur dioxide levels, whether you're talking about the case of your lead oxide levels. So what is the reason for the increasing percentage of lead oxide? What is the reason for the increasing percentage of sulfur dioxide? What are the steps that we are taking for that one? That's what we discuss in case of your energy resources. Then the last one here, that is the case of your biotechnology. So in case of your biotechnology, we'll be discussing about the case of your various types of diseases. A communicable disease, non-communicable diseases. How the disease is spreading from one person to the person. Which type of virus is responsible, which type of bacteria is responsible, what is the protozoa that is responsible. That is what we discuss in case of your biotechnology. Diseases, right? The reasons for that one. At the same time, you need to talk about the case of the present virus, that is the case of your coronavirus. The different variants, their code names. At the same time, the symptoms that each and every particular virus is exhibiting. right? So at the same time, the different types of tests that we carry for identifying a particular disease. That is what we need to focus in case of your biotechnology. And the last one, as of now, whenever we're talking about the case of your nanotechnology, so we are not getting any particular questions from these particular topic, nanotechnology. So in general, if possible, we need to discuss this particular thing, nanotechnology, together with the case of your computers or IT. Right? But in general, we are not getting any particular questions for group 2 level examination or as the case of your essay and constables from this particular topic. Yes, we get some questions from this particular topic when you are moving down to UPSC level or else any particular examination that is equivalent to that particular level, but not here. Right? So these are the topics that we need to focus in case of your science and technology. So apart from science and technology, whenever you're talking about the case of your SI or constables, or else whenever you're talking about the case of your group 2 examination, right, we need to focus even on the case of your physics as well as chemistry to the 10th standard, up to the 10th standard, especially the application part or as the case of your concept oriented, right? So this is about the case of your science and technology part, right? Thank you guys.